What's going on, everybody? FYB presents Wise Word Wednesdays, a quick live stream to help you get closer to accomplishing your dreams. I'm your host, Joe Spider, and I do represent the fresh. I want to start off by saying thank you. Thank you to everybody that's checking out this particular recording, whether you're watching live. Shout out to some of the folks I see popping in through IG. Shout out to my cousin Bravo. Shout out to Josh. And everyone else that's checking out, whether you're watching the recorded version on YouTube Live, I appreciate you, or whether you're watching on Facebook Live. I just want to say thank you for taking time out of your busy schedule just to tap in. I got a great episode for y'all this evening. Man, you know, we're starting this series. We started it last month, and so we are on part 2 of this particular series with a great individual who, I've definitely learned a lot from, just in regards to the simple conversations that we've had and just through observation over time. So I'm going to bring him up. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome my man, brother Cornelius Brown. How you doing, Corn?
What's going on? How are you?
I'm good, man. I see you repping the swag too, the swag on the shirt. So that's what's up, man.
This is just work, man. This is just work. So, it's all love, but it's just work, right? We do what we do, and we love what we do for the people, right?
Absolutely, 100%. For my folks that's watching on the YouTube Live, you're more than welcome to leave a comment. If you do, I know that I can post it here so that we can acknowledge the fact that you left a comment. But regardless, make sure you hit that like button if you're not already doing that, and make sure you hit that subscribe button if you haven't already done so as well. But listen, the topic we're going to go with today that I think is really important, and I know that, Corn, you think it's important as well too, which you actually recommended it, was failure, right? Like, first, I want us to identify, what failure looks like, right? Because I think, I do believe that there's technically no such thing as failure. In my opinion, I believe, well, I'm going to say no such thing. I'll say that I feel like you have to try to fail, right? Like, I feel like failure happens when you do something wrong and you don't learn from it. That to me is failure. You do something wrong and then you don't learn, and so you end up repeating that mistake. But what do you define as failure in what, let's just talk about, let's say, career-wise, life-wise? What do you define as failure?
So let's step back for a second, because there's a lot behind the box that you and I talked about, right? Like, when we first talked, we were texting about what we were going to talk about. We wanted to talk about something different, and which I agree is important, but the space of failure is very uncomfortable for people to talk about, and we have to be okay with that. Like, I cannot stress that enough. From your perspective, what you've done that's well is you've turned failure on its back, and you made it to what we want people to start doing. And that journey is not easy, right? It's not easy. So when you say you don't have, there's no such thing as failure, that's fair. That's fair in the space where you're coming from, because you've learned how to maneuver, how to facilitate how some define as failure. I mean, what we're dealing with here, and it's very important that people understand what we're dealing with here is what's in our mind. And let's set the stage for that. I took a little notes because I didn't want to lose the sight, and I kind of want to put it in some order, in some context of what failure. So if we're talking about what failure looks like, let's just leave it real simple. If we're talking about what failure looks like, it's, hey, I tried something and I didn't do it right. Right? That's just failure in a nutshell. What happens is, though, when we get into failure, or when we try something and it doesn't work, our thoughts start to take over. Our thoughts start to take over. Then here's where it gets really, really cold. Our thoughts turn into our thinking, and that's where the slippery slope begins. Right? So, hey, I did something wrong. Dang, I really did something wrong. I did something wrong. I got to figure this out. Well, dang, if I don't figure this out, I'm going to get a bad grade. Dang, if I don't figure this out, how are people going to perceive me? If I don't figure this out, I'm going to be judged.
Got you. Okay, so you're basically showing the path that having that failure could potentially lead to because of your mindset.
Right. But here's what makes it even. I don't want to use the word worse, but what the minute those thoughts start to happen, no one wants to talk about that.
Mm.
Why? Because it's learned that if I talk about what I'm not good at or what the perception of what it looks like, I don't want to be embarrassed. I don't want to be embarrassed. I give you a perfect example. I talked about this person not too long ago and going through a job interview process, and what we talked about through failure was that if I am to learn, and this is going to sound really interesting, it's hard to learn from everyone who's kind of doing the same thing.
Mm.
It's hard to learn if I don't know what learning looks like. So, for example, we get it's big ups to anyone that says, "Yeah, we learn from failure. We learn." Cool. But going through that process is not cool, not cool. And so that's why I wanted. That's why I think it's important that we talk about that. It's we got to. We have to help people understand. You have to talk about what's not cool. You have to peel that onion. We have to go through these layers of how did you come to this thought process? What happened? And I'm not a psychologist, I'm not come from that space, but there are things that we need to know to try and help get folks through these situations.
Yeah, but even though you're not like a psychologist, I feel like you still have, what I'm saying, a wealth of knowledge through experience, right? Like I think that's what's, also important is like, and I think oftentimes, right, like a lot of times when we see these people who speak, right, like publicly, or they try to encourage people, is usually based on their accolades or achievements. But what I love about certain people, individuals like yourself, like myself, like just the FYB movement, the Wise Word Wednesday movement, is that like we're trying to take our failures, right, and try to talk to people about them to make sure that we can kind of make them aware, like here's an antenna, like hey, you might be experiencing this, like last or about a couple weeks ago, I got a chance to see Dr. John Hope Bryant speak down in SoCal. And he was talking about, he's like, yeah, I had this, but all of that was taken away from me. You know what I'm saying? Like we lost it all, right? And so we had to start from the ground up, because a lot of people like to say, I talk about their accomplishments, but not the process, the road to get there. It's like, yeah, LeBron James got 22 years and 19 years of all-stars, or whatever, 20 plus years of all-stars. But what about the time when he was living in Section 8 housing? You know what I'm saying? Like all of those things we have to talk about. Otherwise, you paint an unrealistic picture of what the journey is supposed to be.
Yeah. One thing that I've heard a lot in music that I'm like, so what does that mean? Like you hear a lot of people talk about, I got it out the mud. Like, you saying you just got your money out the mud, or you saying you failed? Like, what's the relevance in that?
Mm.
And I'm not judging the comment itself. It just has me thinking.
Yeah.
Like we can also. I mean, we went to college. We got it out the mud. We were broke. We had to eat.
And noodles,
Chop
man, and
ramen.
ramen
Yeah,
noodles.
we had the poor man's meal. So that really that's really itching at me. Just hearing that. Another thing that's itching at me is that when I work with a lot of individuals, man, it disheartens me how quickly the people I work with want to they're done, like they want to quit. And again, we talked about this last time. But I again, this is me being empathizing with them, and why your podcast, in my opinion, is so important. Like where people are looking for ways to learn what we're talking about. They're looking for this, and some of these people invest their money that probably they should be using for something else to buy these programs. They don't really do nothing.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So again, now not only are you broken again, now you got to find something else, because the context of the content that you got in your context, it didn't match up. Right. So that's why I wanted to talk about that today. Like, okay, by the end of today, people will have a roadmap. So if you're going to say you really want to learn from failure, no, we're going to walk you
We're
through
gonna
it.
walk you through it.
We're going to walk you through it. Now here's the caveat to that though. And people need to understand this. Do not. I'll go over the stages because Dr. Orr, I hope she's listening. We put this framework together. What we don't want that people do is they'll take our content and put it in a context that we can't speak of. So, for example, we could say, "Oh, well, failure. If we go through this process," and they say, "Well, I went through something similar to that and it didn't work." Well, okay, so tell me what you did again. And you figure out they took the concept and put it in a context that wasn't right fitting because the failure was already there. That makes sense what I'm saying? Like, I learned this, but I'm already going through something. I know I'm gonna fail anyway. But I'm gonna try to save that failure.
It's like me saying like, well, yeah, I took all the basketball lessons, the same lessons as LeBron James. Yeah, but I ain't 6'9". Like I was already destined to fail if my goal was to get to the NBA. You know what I'm saying?
And so here's the point though. With how you and I see it, we cannot take that for granted because there's folks out there that don't see it.
Yeah, man. That's one of those things that reminds me of is Dick Gregory. He talked about, rest in peace to Dick Gregory. He said, once you put those glasses on, he said there's three things. One, you can never take them off. Two, you can never unsee what you now see. And three, I'm sorry, no, he said you can never take them off, so never unsee what you now see. Two was you can never go back to, or you can never force anybody else to see what you see. And three, you can never go back to the way things were. You know what I'm saying? So it's like we have a certain perspective based on our experiences in life, but we can never force anybody else to have that same perspective because they haven't been put on the glasses. It's almost like being, taking the blue pill in the Matrix. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And I through what we're talking about, we're not forcing anybody to do anything. We're just giving you tools.
Right.
You do with them as you may. Does it work? My opinion, it works. And again, if you know, I don't brag on stuff like that. But what I do know is that again, through deep work, deep practice, doing things repetitively, figuring out the world, it works. But here's the other caveat to that, though. Again, we talked about this, and I cannot say this enough. If you're trying to unlearn, relearn that whole process through failure, sometimes if you feel like you have a support system, that support system may be your issue. Again, this is what I mean. If you find yourself failing, you're like, hey, yo, look, I need help. I need to go to such and such because they went through something similar. Well, but you guys are still in the same rat race. So if I fail, all you're telling me is through that experience of the rat race that we're in.
Yeah.
Don't work. Like once you learn something through failure and you're trying to, let's just call it, however you define success, it's not going to be in the same rat race that you're in. It's not.
So tell me when you say, but two things. One, let me acknowledge these comments real quick. I know we had Tony Bibbins came in earlier and said, they believe we learn and grow through our failures. So I definitely appreciate that 100%. And then there's Lee Angel also said on IG, she said, I agree. A lot of people are afraid to try due to what others will think and say about them if they do fail and the embarrassment that may come from it, from potentially starting over. That's facts for sure. I think a lot of people are scared of the embarrassment of failure, and I think it's happened to many people, including it's definitely happened to me, for sure. But when you say it's not applicable to them, could you explain or give like another example of what you mean about by it's not applicable to the area or the rat race that they're in?
Yeah. So let me step back for a second to make sure I'm addressing this next. I think that's a great point. If let's use a basketball example. Sure. If we are on the same team and we practice all the time together, right? And we lose every game. We lose
Mhm.
every game. And next season, we're the same team. And we don't do anything different, almost like a closed system, a closed mindedness, if you will.
Mhm.
Your teammates will say, hey, you've made this mistake. You have to get better. So you go off and you do the same thing against the same people you've been playing with. How you know you're getting better? How you know you're working on that failure? Because
Okay.
you're still
Okay.
in that same, you're
Yeah.
still
Yeah.
there.
Got you. Got you.
Right? So it's in another time for another day. If you understand open and closed systems, you will see why Blockbuster failed. You you
Man, because they
you
were supposed to
you
take over.
yeah,
They were supposed to be Netflix.
you will understand that process, right? Like that's if we're talking about corporate and business, that's a huge example.
Okay. Got
That so does that make sense?
Yeah, yeah, I got you now. I got you.
I do want to say to the I think it was one person that said make the comment like the embarrassment and wanting to start over.
Yeah,
I get that. I think I appreciate that comment. I appreciate the honesty. The good news is there's ways to combat that. They're not easy, and we'll talk about it when we talk about the steps because I'll go over that. Um, but that it's possible because starting over tip 9 times out of 10, when we talk about starting over, we're focused on time. We're not worried about the idea of starting over,
right.
right? So, um, while I do respect that comment and I totally agree with it, we can still move past that. It's just how we shake out these external factors that really don't work in our favor, if that makes sense,
Got
right?
you. Got you.
So, but again, the whole point is I really want to dig deep to everyone, and to people, whether I talk to them, we talk here, if they reach out any other time, but get uncomfortable or find someone. And again, finding someone, that's another story. But anyway, you have to talk about what's troubling in terms of failure to you, and that vulnerability is not easy. Like again, like I'm divorced, right? Like I want to talk about that. Everybody around me was moving a different way, and I'm like, dang, I couldn't talk about it. It sucked. I couldn't talk about it. That some of my family members are on drugs. Like I don't want to talk about that. I don't want to talk about that. That I lost my job and I really don't have a house to stay in, and I don't want to talk about that. I don't want to talk about um you know, families not talking to me and I'm doing bad. And, I got, dude. So here's, and I'll share this. Every car I've had has been repoed,
Mm.
except for the new one I got. So, and
How? I mean, you've
now,
been on the run.
here's what's even, here's what's even, what, like, it's crazy, right? Here's what's even crazy. I went on a trip, came back from that trip, my car was repoed.
You got to explain. You got to tell me more details. I'm sweating now. You got to give me some more information because every car
Every car, like yo, except for the new one, like dude, because some of the decisions I've made
wasn't the best decisions.
wasn't the best decision,
Gotcha.
and
Why?
and
You know
and
what though? That's real maturity right there to be able to, you know what I mean, to admit that. That's real maturity for sure.
but what
Yeah,
would I
for sure.
lose though? What do I lose by sharing
Yeah,
that? Other than someone telling me their experience, other than someone telling me their vulnerability, like what do I lose?
right. That's real.
Right now, was it really a money thing? Yeah, sure, yeah, of course, but it is what it is. It is what it is.
Yeah.
So it doesn't bother me, but yeah, man. So so that's what I mean. Like the kind of conversations I like. Really, I've been having with some people. But when you talk about that pain that you're going through and getting that out, then a new process starts. A
So
new
do you think failure is not only just going through something and not, not improving, but do you think could failure potentially be not even going for something because of the fear that and or anxiety that comes with it?
Sure, it's called avoidance, right?
Mm-hmm.
Right. So we avoid it, and man, who knows that better than where we come from? Like, nah, I'm not going over there. I don't even want to try that.
Yeah.
I don't want to try that. Like, especially when it comes to swimming.
You don't
Like
know
a
how
lot
to swim. You ain't doing the water. I love swimming. I'm a summer baby. You feel me? I love being in the water.
yeah,
I like
yeah.
going swimming. Now, I don't go in like oceans. That's out. You feel me? But a pool, I got you. You feel
Let
me?
me,
I'll go to the beach for like I'll stand like knee high, and you know what I'm saying. Like when I was in high school, I would have I had the energy and excitement to still just try to go in the ocean. Now, nah.
so triathlon. True story. Triathlon.
Yeah.
I trained for half one, half triathlon, and the first part is the swimming part, right? So, and this was in the bay, and so I don't believe I'm sharing this, but I'll share it, whatever. So I've been training, like the idea is to swim like a mile, like okay, I can almost do it. Ooh, ooh, bam, bam, bam. I get out there in that water. I think I swam. I had to be no longer than 10 minutes. I drowned. They had to get a boat and come get me to take me to the next part, man.
He said, I've
So
had enough.
yeah, my body wasn't built for that, man. Not only did I fail, I could have drowned. It's bananas,
Yeah.
man. So, but
Yeah.
true story though, it was cold. I had this expensive ass wetsuit. I thought I was fresh, and
He was fresh in that boat. That's for sure. Hey, a real talk. This is a side story, real quick. But like, I remember the only time I ever really thought that I was going to drown. Right, I went to summertime. We went to Raging Waters. I think that was the name of it, or like the water park in Sacramento. And we went to there. It was or Walnut Creek, I think it was. I can't remember. Maybe it was Sac or Walnut Creek. I can't remember, but like they had not a wave pool. So there's a lazy pool where it's just like you can sit around in the floating circles, but then there's a wave pool where it basically feels like waves coming at you or whatever. And so me being young, I'm like 15. I'm like, oh yeah, bro, I'm about to go try to touch the wall all the way in the wave pool. So I got to swimming, you feel me, against the current. Bro, I got to the deep end and I was like, I'm tired. I was like, I think I might drown, bro, because like I'm thinking like, oh yeah, I got it. It's just swimming. Like it's just but swimming against the current is way different than swimming with the current. It's like you're working twice as hard and moving like a quarter of the speed or a quarter of the distance. And so I literally felt like I was going to drown. And I luckily like the swim back was way easier because you know what I'm saying, I was going with the current now. So the current was pushing me a lot faster. But like I had to take a break. But again, like there's nowhere to rest. You in the middle of a wave pool, so like literally, I had to just try to thug it out. But I literally thought I was going to drown. But your story just made me think of that. So I should
so
say that.
isn't that a great analogy to talk about failure though?
Ooh,
Isn't that a great analogy?
ooh, dang, that's real.
And ain't that a great analogy? I'm swimming towards the current. I'm really not moving well. Not only is it just me, it's a lot of people. I'm thinking I'm about to drown. Well, I I finally touched the wall and I went
Oh no,
back.
I didn't get to the wall. I didn't get to the
Okay,
wall.
well, you didn't get to the wall,
Yeah,
but
I'd have
the point is, if you got to the wall and you accomplished it, like the current's pushing you back,
died. That's
right?
real though.
So I love that analogy a lot, and I think what happens with a lot of people is this idea of time is going somewhere, and patience isn't a real virtue, right? Like, why am I not getting this now? Why is this not happening now? Why is this not happening when I want it to happen? My answer to you, wonderful people, is get over yourself.
Bro, that right there is a mic drop, bro. already,
Get over
because
yourself.
I feel like a lot of people, you know what I mean? Again, with this social media society, right? Like everybody thinks it's supposed to be instant. Everybody thinks like the time that you, I just tell folks, the time that you put in, if you even think that you've put in enough time, you ain't put in enough time. No
Yeah,
matter, like, if you're like, oh man, I should be right here, it's because it's you're off. Your meter's off. Just
yeah.
period. Just stop thinking about how much time it's supposed to be, and just do the work. And when you do it and you do it with your all, like the things are gonna happen when they're supposed to happen.
So two things there. Two things. What you're saying is taking the content and put it in the context. That context that people are putting it in is that it should be happening now. Now, here is the more uncomfortable thing that people have to understand, and it's really hard, especially with people I work with, is your effort may not be good enough. There's
Ooh,
levels to this stuff. Again, if you're, let's take the basketball analogy. If you're practicing around the same people and you're making the same mistakes, you get better with them. Doesn't mean when you step out of that court, you're going to be ready for some next level stuff.
that's real.
Your level is only as good as the people around you. So if everybody's telling you, yeah, you're this great, yeah, you're doing all these things. If that's the world you want to be in, cool, no problem. But step outside of that. All you have is the people that told you that you've been great. You have no one else is telling you that. Like, let's take it from a business perspective. I've had people say, yeah, they have these great ideas in business, and they go out to talk to people. No one wants their product.
I feel like that right there is the story of 90% of people on Instagram that's trying to sell something. It's like, I was just talking to someone the other day. I was like, a lot of people, we're talking about the idea of owning masters for music and things like that. And I was like, there's a lot of people out there that own their masters. They own 100% of nothing though, because their masters isn't worth nothing. So it's like, would you rather own 100% of nothing or 50% of something? You know what I'm saying? Like where, like you said, like a lot of people are pushing a product, but nobody wants to buy their product, but they're still saying that they're selling it. Well, you don't have any customers.
And so the point is, so the real uncomfortable conversation becomes, if I know it, and this is hard. So I'm saying, like, this is fast forward. So
Yeah.
if people are telling you that you are great or that you're good at something, and then when you step out of that realm and people are telling you you're not nothing, some people still try to push through. Like, no, I'm good, I'm good. But you keep getting the same. No, you're still getting like, no, we don't want you. No, we don't want that. No, but I'm good. Well, how you know you're good? Because my people tell me I'm good. Huh?
You need some new people.
Huh? So that's a difficult conversation to have. That right
You need
there.
some new people,
That,
dog.
but it's facts, right? But one, people don't want to have that. Oh, I'm not saying all. So I hate to generalize, but
Well, let me ask this though, because I feel like this is actually really common amongst the black folks, right? The black community. I've noticed, right? Like a lot of folks, right? They'll be like, well, this is dope for black people. Okay, but I'll be like, and don't get me wrong, I get it. There's a whole continent, right, that we have of black people, but in America, black people only 30% of the population. So if you make something that's only for black people, you're literally saying in America, now not talking about worldwide, in America, you're literally saying you're only trying to reach 13% of the population. And that's assuming that 100% of those people actually like your stuff. So do you think we often, when we talk about like, oh, my people love it, so why isn't it doing well in other places? Well, it's like, yeah, but that's because you only made it specifically for your people. So you getting the battery in your back by people, by the demographic that you cater to, right? But not for the overall, you know, overall group. And each person is a potential customer. So if I make something that's like, yo, I have something that's only meant for black people, I've already cut off 87% of the potential sales. Period. Just based off of the demographic that I'm trying to cater to.
so Again, we'll talk about the other topic because you're talking about something that's very important. And if we're
Mm,
to talk about Black folks, I think if they're entrepreneurs or business people, I hope hopefully that they're listening to this. So in class, we go over something called the business model canvas, right?
okay.
It's all these quadrants in there, and Dr. Orr and I we talk about this a lot. When I teach people about their demographics of who they're serving, so customer segments at the end of the day, it's just your target audience, who you want to go for. I typically tell people that I work with, you need to come up at least 40 or 50.
Mm. Oh wow.
So the first thing they're like deer in the headlights, like, what? I don't know that many people. I can't do this. I can't. Well, I'm like, well, one, you just said can't so many damn times. Like, can we fix something? Like, hold on for a second. But why don't you think this is possible? And so to answer your question, they they don't know, they're not aware. Let me say it this way. It's not that they don't know, it's just that that level of awareness is not mature yet.
Mm, okay. Okay.
So if I'm serving, I believe that all Black people like this. They're saying what they're really saying is, hey, in my mind, I believe all Black. For example, let's use this. Like if I want to do popsicles, all Black people love purple Kool-Aid popsicles. Okay, so
Mm,
now I'm gonna make my own and start selling them. Well, why are you doing that? Well, because I remember when I grew up, everyone was eating those, so I think it's applicable everywhere. And so that inability to know how to do research, the inability to not even see further than the demographic that you have, puts you in a bind already. So when you say that 13% of Black people, they're not even breaking it down that demographic of that 13%. Give you a perfect example, and I'll share this with you because I use it in class. Barbecue sauce example. I hate to use it, but just to put some context to it, how I use it in my entrepreneurship class. I say, if you want to get to 40 customer segments, there's a way to do this. I'm like, what are you talking about? I was like, well, do kids eat barbecue sauce the same way adults do? And they're like, no. I said, so are they the same demographic?
hmm.
No, they're not. Right? Kids like hot dogs and chicken nuggets.
Right.
Older people like ribs and stuff on, so those are two separate segments. So the idea is to start having people understand this stuff. Like, if you really think you're going to serve, first of all, list all of them down, and you have to say, does your product, back to what you were saying, does your product really address the needs of these people? Remember, D, we talked about this the first week. If you're in business, if your idea is to get money first, then I really encourage you to rethink your business model. You're an entrepreneur, you're doing your business because you're solving a problem. And if that problem goes back to you, then there's an issue. And here's what I mean. So when I have my students do the value proposition, right? Dr. Orr made it really easy for folks. She says, come up with the problem, solution, then what makes you unique. When people talk about the problem, this is what they tell us. The problem is that I don't have enough money to start my business, and I need all the tools I need to start. That's not the problem. The problem is for the people you want to serve. What are they
Right.
going through? The problem isn't with you,
Yeah.
right? So when a lot of business people, or when you're talking about us in particular, and I'm not saying all of us, but they're in this notion that the problem is that it's their business. No, it's not that. The problem, you don't even know what the problem is because you haven't gone on and did any research,
Right.
which enhance where people fail.
Yeah. One of the things that even like I said, Dr. John O'Brien talked about was like he's like entrepreneurs like are problem solvers. Like we find something that's wrong and then we capitalize off of that particular off fixing or solving that problem. So again, this is coming from Corn, coming from John O'Brien, just coming from life in general, information. So let's talk about what happens after failure, right? Because we know that, and I talked about this before we started recording. I said that in my presentations that I give to people, I've spoken to a variety of different groups all over The state is, I always say the one thing I can guarantee you that's going to happen is you're going to hit a rough patch. You're gonna go through struggle. I guarantee it. That's the one thing, no matter what happens, what you do moving forward. Even if you choose to push through or you choose to give up, it doesn't matter. You're going to hit a point where you're struggling, where it's harder than it's ever been before, no matter what. So when a person faces that moment that or gets to that point of failure where, let's say, you put all your eggs into a basket and it just doesn't work out, whether it be a job opportunity, a home, whether it be a marriage, a class, you worked your tail off and you still failed that exam. Like, what happens after a person hits that moment of failure?
So, with your permission, can we talk about um, the steps of how you got to knowing what you know? Because
Sure.
I think people need to know that. But again, your question is valid. I'm going to answer it. I just think we need to set the stage of, how did you get there, right? Like, because
Absolutely.
your mind is like, no, I get this now. So I'm
Absolutely.
like,
And shout out to
let's
JD for sure.
yeah.
Absolutely. Shout out to the
What's
mob,
up? What's going
JD.
on?
And
What's going
also
on, JB?
one Dr. Dre. Also shout out to both of y'all. Appreciate y'all tuning
Right.
in. But yeah, we can talk about that for
Okay.
sure.
Okay. And I'll be quick. This is recorded, but I'll be
You
quick.
good,
So
yeah.
the first thing we have to understand is like a slogan I like to use. I didn't coin it. I was reading a book, but uh, I love to think that I accept everything and I expect nothing.
Mm.
That's kind of a mantra that I like to use. Next, the
Still that for
framework.
Wise Word Wednesday, by the way. Accept everything and expect nothing. I'm
There
taking a
you
note,
go.
right?
All
Look,
good.
look,
All
hey,
good.
listen, I'm literally taking the notes right now.
Good, 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 good. So if you accept that mantra, then you're using the model that Dr. Orr and I talk about: content, that what's being said and what's being done, the context of it doesn't matter. The context, I can work with that, the situation by itself. I'm going to process this information, that's everything that's happening to me, and then I'm going to apply it. So that's what's going on with that kind of mantra there.
No doubt. No doubt. I also want
Next,
to shout out BC is in the building in the comments as well, too. My man,
hey,
shout out to BC in the building. Appreciate you, brother.
that's what's up. So then next, right, you have this idea of you have to have this level of self-awareness. And this level of self-awareness for everyone is very important. And it's the difference between thoughts and thinking. Here's what I mean. Your thoughts are going to be what they are. You're not going to control your thoughts. You're just not. Where the trap starts is where the thoughts become your thinking. And when the thoughts become your thinking, we fall into that slope, which then becomes, okay, that's how I define failure. And so given the situation of, well, damn, I can't get this. I'm not doing well. And if I'm not doing well, then I'm not gonna succeed in life. Right. So your thoughts then turn into your thinking, which then you're saying you're failure. You're gonna fail. But then once you start to understand, this, I accept everything and expect nothing, you then go into really say to yourself, if you really get it and you practice this, everyone, this works, in my opinion. You start to have choices about how you view failure because this is in your head. Nothing's happened yet. This is in your head, right? So you have choices how you want to see failure. One question you want to ask yourself, in my opinion, is what does this failure mean to you? That's one. Uh, how much do you care about it? Is it, does it mean a lot? And then is this failure worth your investment? All of this happens this process happens in what can be in 5 seconds. I don't know, however long it takes you to think, but all this is going on in your head. So now to answer your question, what happens now is that, well, Corn, what happens after failure? So, does that make sense? So you're saying your question goes back to, so what happens after the next step?
Yeah.
That next step only happens if you decide to choose what you're going to do with that failure.
Right.
That's
And depending on the decision, that's what's ultimately going to change the trajectory of what course you go on after failure.
if you choose to do it.
Right.
And that's important for people to understand. First of all, let's make this very clear. Failure is an event, not a person. Failure doesn't have
Ooh,
feelings.
there's another wise word Wednesday
Doesn't
right
have
there.
feelings. It can't talk to you. It doesn't respond to you. You only person you're yelling at is yourself because it's in your head. So you're not talking to anybody,
Wow.
right? So go back to this concept again. So now I'm really answering you. Once you've made that choice to say, I want to do or get better or move a different trajectory or pivot, whatever you want to call it, we go into this thing of deep work, deep practice, and deep thinking. Now, when I talk about deep thinking, I'm not talking about this idea of letting your thoughts overwhelm you. I'm talking about a strategic plan of how do you actually get better, right? So once I know I want to go into this trajectory, I gotta want to put in the work. You mentioned 10,000 hours, right? If I want to do this deep practice, again, if we want to move different, if I want to get better at practicing something, what do I do? Do I hang around? No, I'm gonna say not hang around the same people, but do I have the right resources in place? Because there's no use if you investing in something if you really believe in it and you know for a fact that the people around you that are your current resources, they're not going to where to take you where you want to go. They're only going to see the world the same way you see it.
Right.
Right. So then if all that is all well, good trajectory before, or and you notice you've gotten better because through this deep work, deep practice, deep thinking, one thing that you, again, I'll say this again, we talked about it last time, you need to take notes on that experience because it's different. You've never done that before.
Mm.
It's taking you a long time. It's taking you 5 years. You have to write down or take a mental note some way somehow of your experience. I like to speak into my phone. I will type something really fast. I will scribe notes every time I go through an experience. I will do that. I will take a walk in the morning to reflect on it. I will meditate. I will pray about the things that I'm going through. And let me make this point very clear. I'm not asking God to say, "Hey, give me this." I'm asking for the awareness and the patience that if I am to go through this, regardless of the decision, it is what it is. Just make sure I'm better the next day. That's it.
I love that. I love that. For my folks that's watching, leave a comment. If you've or tell me what's one of the things that you failed at, you know what I mean, and that maybe you've grown from, you've learned from. And because I know I definitely like it's a part of me at this point, right? Like it's a part of the not a part of me, it's a part of the process in growing and learning. But I think oftentimes people think there's no I'm supposed to hit every time. And it's like I try to take it to like or think of it life or any type of journey that people are on. I try to say this like Stephen Curry is the greatest shooter in NBA history. It's been over 75 years worth of NBA players. And Steph Curry, and at each one of those 75 years, there was a new player that came in, right? So he's the greatest shooter in NBA history, and he shoots like 43% for his career. Like 43%, which means he misses 6 out of every 10 shots. And he's the greatest shooter in NBA history. Baseball.
Mm-hmm.
In baseball, if you hit 1 out of every 3, you're an all-star. An all-star. Like you're the best of all the league.
Batting
1
300.
out
Yep.
of every 3. 33% or 333 in baseball. They
I hear
use
you.
that.
Yeah, it makes sense. Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So it's like we have to recognize that failure is a part of the journey. But again, is it because you only batted 160 this first time? You like, I'm not gonna try no more, or baseball isn't for me? How do you do it?
I'll share something that really, those analogies are dope. I mean, they make a lot of sense, and continue to use those when you talk about failure. My dad is probably the genius when it comes to failure. And we talked about this today. His brother died, and I was, I give my dad his flowers all the time. Awesome guy, awesome dad. I never forget. I I was at Sac State at the time, and my parents had just moved to their house in Vallejo, and I was helping, my parents get situated. My dad had a briefcase, and I remember that briefcase because when I was growing up, he would always take it with him to work. And I opened the briefcase, and I've never seen it, so I've seen it before. I've never seen it, and I seen a dictionary in there. I was like, whoa.
People don't know about them. Young folks don't know about that dictionary back in the day, boy.
So you remember the little ones?
Yeah.
So my dad had that in there. I said, Dad, why do you have a dictionary in your
Briefcase.
briefcase? And he makes kind of a joke out of it. He was like, "You went to college, not me. You know all those big words." So, so we made a joke about it, but that was him being vulnerable, right? Like, yo, I don't know what I don't know.
Yeah.
And I'm not gonna fake it that I know it. And so this is how I'm gonna do it. How that relates to failure, you have to be self-aware to know what you don't know and push through that. Like, who cares? Stop worrying about the judgment. Like, people are people. Now, I empathize. Now, the people that are going through this, yes, it's easier said than done. But once you start to understand and practice what we're talking about, I accept nothing, but I accept everything, but expect nothing. It really hones into the idea, like, what is the worst that is going to happen? Get out your thoughts.
What do you say to those folks, you know what I'm saying, who are super ambitious? And again, if you're watching this on YouTube Live or Instagram Live, make sure you tell us what you think about failure in the comments. What do you say to those folks who are super ambitious, who like, I want a dub, like I'm trying to win, like what I'm not doing this just to participate. I'm not doing this because it's fun. I'm doing this because I'm a competitor and I want to win. So to expect nothing is unrealistic. What do you say to those kind of folks?
Yeah, good luck. Good luck. And I pray for you, and I wish you nothing but the best. But I'm not going to stress out if you want to be competitive in that world. I know people in real estate. I know people who have competitive jobs. Yeah, do it. But I will say that ambition, it dies down eventually, right? You're not gonna be competitive. I mean, you can be competitive forever if you choose to, but I like my blood pressure low, man.
Yeah, there's this I don't know, not to cut you off, brother. I
Yeah,
apologize. Shout out to JD for saying failure is inevitable. Just keep going.
that's right.
I don't know if you listen to Kendrick Lamar, but he had an album that was called To Pimp a Butterfly, right? And in the end of this album, he has this conversation, this back and forth with Tupac, and he talks about how, like, and in Tupac's, the one of the things he responds is he's like, there's no loud 30+ year olds. Like, usually by the time you get to that age, you kind of get quiet because you just recognize that you're just falling into the system, right? You're just being a part of what is, because you've been, when you're young, you feel like you're inevitable, you loud, and you saying whatever you want but then as you get older, you start to just fill in. But there are some people who may keep that competitive spirit, but I don't know, it might not be the healthiest way to move about things to a certain extent.
No, let them do it. Let them do it. That's how you learn. Let them do it. Because if you're ambitious and you're going towards something, I don't suit you well by trying to stop you at that point. Uh, um, Tank Davis talked about he wanted to go to therapy after he was done boxing, right? He says, I can't do it while I'm going through boxing because I have to be a monster still.
Yeah, you
Not
gotta
a
be
monster like that, but I still gotta, I don't have time to, show this other side of me that I know is possible. And I said, that's dope. Like, for him to be to self-awareness to even say that, because that's being vulnerable. I think that's dope.
Yeah.
So that ambitious person, there's nothing I can't say to you that's too much. But what I can say is when you ready to come down, I'll be here waiting on you, because it's gonna be, you will go through a lot. You're gonna go through something.
Yeah.
And then when you go through it, so here's the trick though. So this is what I will say. Ambition, if you're doing it by yourself and you fail, or at some level something happens to you, who do you talk to? Who do you talk to? You're gonna tell what? You can tell your homies, your parents, grandmother, and you tell them, and guess what? It still doesn't work because they don't know what you're going through because your ambition is so high. So who do you talk to? Right?
It's a good point.
So that's what I'm saying. Like, yo, ambitious people, go for it. And I'm not, and I don't mean that in a sarcastic way. I mean that I'm not gonna stop you,
Yeah, like
but I'll
we
here.
wish you the best in your journey. But also, like you said, it's not necessarily good. And I noticed one thing about competitive people. I'm gonna acknowledge. Shout out to Tori. She said you can't move forward in life without failure. We are constantly learning. People who are super competitive, like the ultimate competitors, like almost like addicted to competition. Like those are people like Kobe Bryant, who didn't have many friends, but people like Michael Jordan, who didn't have many friends. Like people who are like obsessed with that competition. Like it's a lonely space to be in because everybody doesn't have that. You know what I'm saying? That they don't have that. And those
Yeah.
are just two examples in one sport, but there's a plethora of other people
Mhm,
that, meet that same criteria.
mhm, mhm. And then think about it too. When you hit those again, to me, it's all about who could you be vulnerable with, through your journey. Like, damn, I'm tired. I'm waking up this early in the morning. I gotta do this. I gotta do all these things. And you could try to talk people if you meet them at a bar or you meet them somewhere else, and they're like, "Oh yeah, 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 yeah," but they're really not in the same place that you're in, right? And so, to the ambitious people, just I would strongly encourage anyone that's ambitious, and there's nothing wrong with that. So let me make that point very clear. But who is
Facts.
around you? Who's around you when all this is going on? Like you want all the accolades, cool, dope, but something's gonna happen. You need to talk to somebody, and if you're not talking to somebody, it's gonna eat you up alive, and that turns into another thing about frustration and you know things that we probably don't want for people. I don't want that for somebody to do perform well, and when something happens to them, they crash out. I mean, here's a great example. Here's a great example, and I hate to use this example, but it's great. When I found about Tiger Woods in his own going home and he gets into an accident, who does he talk to about what he's going through?
Right. Yeah, it's a cold world at the
It's
top,
a
man.
cold world. It's a
You know,
cold world, and yeah, it's a
that's
cold world. And if that's what someone's dream is, or I wish the best for you, but I empathize with you.
I used to, back in the days, I used to want to be, billionaire, being that young person in the 20s, right? Like, oh man, I want to be a billionaire. I know I could do it. I could do it. Da, 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 da. And you know, the older I got, the more I started to pay attention to what billionaires do, their lifestyle, like, you know what I mean? And I was just like, I don't know if I want to work like that. Like they are working all day, every day, everything. It's like again, it's like that Jordan, like that Kobe mentality, that Jay-Z. It's like they're always thinking about work. It's the next thing and the next thing. In fact, my Wise Word Wednesday earlier today was talking about that, like giving yourself permission to have a bad day because you're always focusing on, what's next. I do want to acknowledge BC on the IG. He said, as a 25-year television executive, we hear no 85% of the time. This is why strategy, compartmentalization, execution, and research is imperative to growth. 100% BC. That is facts, man. Definitely.
Appreciate
Yeah.
that. Yeah. Yeah. Um, I was as you were talking, I was thinking about this whole concept of billionaire and millionaires and stuff, man, and it's really interesting because we have to understand as people, especially when we're scrolling through our phones and looking for stuff, like these are a small percentage of people in our society, in our nation, and we're saying that yo, I want to be just like this person and have that type of money, right? And again, that's taking someone else's content and make it and put it into our context, and it just doesn't work.
It's like it's actually you have greater odds winning the lottery. Like you have greater odds winning the lottery than you do of being one of those
Mm-hmm.
people. You know what I'm
Mm-hmm.
saying? So it's again to each their own, because there are those people that were meant to do that. I believe Jay was meant to be Hove, right? Like I believe Kobe was meant to be the 5-time champion, the arguably one of the best ever. Like there's always those people, but most of us are not gonna be that addicted to what it is that we want. So why not set some realistic expectations and say, man, I just want to be the best version of me.
Yeah, yeah.
And
But
I'm
that's
willing,
hard to
like I
do.
said, I'm willing to accept all that comes with that.
Yeah, yeah. That's hard to do. We gave him some steps. But that's hard to do, man. Like, and I empathize with that. Like, just imagine someone from a neighborhood hearing that they've been great their entire life, and they're still ambitious. They still want to do great things. And they're hearing from a group of peers who barely even know them that they're not great. Like,
Life changing, man.
whew.
That'll shatter the ego. It'll shatter you. It's almost like it's almost like being a big fish in a little pond.
Mhm.
You know what I'm saying? You're used to being told you're this, you're that. And it's crazy because, working in, education, you see people go through this where like they're the top of their class, they're the best of the best, the elite, and then they go, to the next level, whether it be from middle school to a different high school. Maybe you was the top in your middle school, you go to a private high school, maybe you go from private high school to a 4-year university, right? Like you see these people or to a community college, right? These people who are like the best in their area, and they get to that next level, right? They're at the community college and they're like, oh, snaps, you mean I'm not the best? Like I didn't, like I have to actually like I got to work hard. You mean at this private 4-year university, like I got to work harder than I've ever worked before, but I've been working hard for 12 years.
Yo, my daughter is probably the best example of this. And if she's watching, baby, I'm sorry, but this is how we get down. So she's getting ready to graduate high school, right?
Congratulations.
Well, let's have a talk about that.
Oh,
So, um, I said, hey, your graduation, you good, you okay? She's like, yeah. I said, well, how do I feel about you graduating? She's like, it was an expect. I'm supposed to do that, Daddy. And I was like, so you think I'm going to celebrate it? She's like, no, because it doesn't stop there. I still have to keep working. I said, okay, well, what about when you go to med school? She's like, nope, it don't stop. I may celebrate for like a day, but I got to get back to work. And it took us a minute to get to that point. Now, she might have a different opinion with her friends, whoever the case may be. Cool. But for her to be aware of how we get down, we save the BS for something else. I'm not gonna celebrate something that I knew you were gonna do. Talk to me like because she's taking AP Bio right now, and she's like, oh Dad, this she was like, this is funny. She's like, Dad, I got to, you know what? Let me just get back to stuff. But she would. I'm like, baby, it's cool. I get what I get you want to celebrate, but she understands like this ain't it.
Yeah.
It doesn't
This is the
stop. Like
beginning.
like shit. I mean, somebody might call CPS on me, but I never forget. Actually, I will share this story. So, my daughter, she was like in the second, third grade, and I'm gonna tell the rated G version of this, but being vulnerable still. She came. I asked a few people. Again, I'm keeping it rated G. I asked a few people, hey, did she study? Did she study that night? And they're like, yeah, she studied. I was like, okay, cool, bet. Never forget because this happened on the test was on a Wednesday. So she comes back to me with her test score. It was 20 out of 29. So I said, oh, I said, keep in mind, she's in the third grade.
Mm.
So I said, oh, this is what we doing now? So I don't know if everybody's familiar. If you go to 24th and Meadowview, there's some quadplexes over there.
Mm-hmm.
And it's in the neighborhood, right? There's a liquor store across the street from the quadplex. Uh, Drove her over there
Oh,
and
oh God. Okay.
drove her over there, gave her $5, third grade. So she want to get on the bus. So I commenced. So I actually drive off a little bit, and I hear her screaming. And I turned back around. I was like, "So why do you think I did that?" And she was like, "Because I got a D. It was like a D minus, like something like that." I said, and this is very early on. So I know she gets it now, but during the time I know she got it. I said no. I said the grade I don't care about if you put in work. So for example, and this is what people need to understand. Like I want to cuss right now, but I can't. But
You can cuss. I mean, if you want to. Yeah.
so you remember how we talked about like your hardest work doesn't mean there's no correlation between what you
The
perceive to be
outcome.
hard work and the outcome, right?
Right.
So I told her, I said, I don't give a whatever if you get a D if you bust your butt, because that means
Right.
we can learn from that. Right? We can learn from that.
You ain't
But
even
if you just
try.
get a D, if you just get a D because you catting off, what you was doing, the trajectory of maybe your future, if you continue to practice this, is not going to be in your favor.
Yeah. Yeah. That's where, it's crazy. It's like, that's a great lesson to learn. I think, she was blessed to learn that at such an early age, because a lot of times, looking at the statistics, Black folks, especially Black men, specifically, are struggling academically nationwide, right? And I think a lot of it is not because we're incapable. A lot of it is because we are not trying. We're not pushing ourselves. We're not, you know, actually applying ourselves to give our best. Often, now there's a variety of different reasons as to why that is. Many of us are not represented. We don't see ourselves. We're mistreated. We're over punished. We're over policed. All those things in the school system, 100%. But I just said all that to say, it's like what the lesson that she got in the third grade was a lesson that I didn't learn until junior year of high school, senior year of high school. You know what I'm saying? So imagine if I'd have got that lesson way back then, that like, yo, it's the fact that you didn't apply yourself. You're not talking about the grade. You didn't apply yourself, and that's my problem. I think that was a dope lesson,
Yeah,
for her to learn.
yeah. No, she didn't have a bad grade sense. I think
Yeah.
that was like some scared
Set her
straight.
straight. She's like, I ain't
Yeah,
about to be catching this bus. No.
yeah. She was like, "What? $5?" So, but man, that's my big. She knows how I feel about that story, and we
I
talk
love
about it
it.
a lot. We laugh at it now. So yeah,
I
it's
love
all
it. I love it. All right,
yeah.
let's wrap it up a little bit. What are some final words that you want to leave the people when it comes to failure? Because I know you gave them the lessons, you gave them the steps, the many things, and I hope people do at the bare minimum, man. I hope people at least learn to sit with themselves, right? Like after learning, after going through an experience, after failing, just sit with yourself and really, like, whether it be meditate, pray, go for a walk, whatever you can do. I definitely hope that they take that at the bare minimum. If you don't take anything else, take that. But what are some things you want to lead the folks with before we head out of here?
Yeah. Just I want to reiterate what you said. Like everyone, sit with your failures, sit with your mistakes, and let that process happen. Maya Angelou said it best. If you're upset, if you're angry, based on like your failures, if you will, then put that energy into something to get you where you want to go. Right? The ability to accept everything and expect nothing goes a long way if you really apply it, and if you're willing to say, I'm a tool for learning. I'm always learning. That mindset is very important. You don't have to know it all. You don't have to be the person to have all the answers. Learning, accepting failure for what it is, going through that process, taking notes on it, reflecting. That's all I'm hoping everyone will do, and get comfortable with being uncomfortable and to talk about your failures with either yourself or your loved ones. Actually, I will recommend talking to someone that you can be vulnerable with as a start to help you get through, or hopefully you find someone that you can talk to help you get through certain, or to think about how to maneuver through whatever you're going through. So, yeah.
Man, I appreciate that. Thank you for all the folks that tuned in to this episode. Genuinely appreciate you, Corn, for taking the time to meet. I also want to acknowledge Little Boy Blue that was in the comments as well too. Left some hand claps. Appreciate you being there as well. Check it out on the Instagram. We will continue to be having these kind of conversations once a month. That's the goal, to be able to have these conversations. Just again, we're going to try to give you some insight. We're trying to hook you up with information based on our experiences, based on the lessons. I mean, Corn has literally traveled a lot of different places, spoken a lot of different places. I've traveled a lot of different places, spoken a lot of different places. So we're just trying to give you some information, some insight that can potentially help you be better. Because our goal is really to make sure that folks who come after us are better than where we were. You know what I'm saying? That's the goal. That's the whole point of it. So I appreciate y'all for tuning in. Make sure you hit that like button, hit that subscription button to the Wise Word Wednesday YouTube show, so that way you can always be tuned in. For my folks that's on IG, if you jump over to the Wise Word Wednesday YouTube channel, you can hit that subscribe button or the follow button, and that way you can leave your comments. And just like you saw some of the comments earlier, we can actually post them on the show. We want y'all to leave these comments because I know the IG be popping for show. It gets the most interaction, but I do want to get folks over here to the YouTube so that way we can leave these comments here so folks who will come and watch them later can get interaction as well too. So appreciate y'all, man. I'm gonna leave y'all like I usually do. We fresh, and I love you, and I hope y'all be smooth. We will see y'all next month.